Hi folks, Jeff here again from JPR Leatherworks. As I've said in a couple of the videos, I'm just doing a series of videos to review products from a company called Auden. Historically, what happened was I bought these tools. I originally bought a set of strap-in punches similar to the ones we're going to look at today. But I bought them, it's a slightly different point, but I bought them because I just needed something cheap. And I was really impressed with them. It was a cheap knife in that the punches were inexpensive, but it wasn't cheap in the way it was built. I was really impressed. So a while ago, I basically wore out the edge beveler I've been using for years and years and years. I just honed and sharpened it enough times that it was just gone. So I finally decided I need a new set, and I thought, hey, why don't I try some bevelers from Auden? And I did. And I was impressed. So I bought a set of edge bevelers from Auden. I bought really just one. I didn't buy a set. I bought one to meet the need I had, the size. It was a number one. Was really impressed. So over the next a few months, I bought the rest of them. And now I have a complete section of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 sized bevelers. And I was so impressed with them, I created that video to show. And Auden Company, good folks that they are, really enjoyed working with them, generously sent me a bunch of tools to look at and review. So that's what I'm doing in these videos, is reviewing those. They're not paying me. I'm giving you unbiased opinion. If I don't like something, I'll tell you. But so far, there's nothing I haven't liked. We'll see. We're going to take a look at a set of tools right now. First of all, let me just say how impressive this packaging is. I've said it in probably every video, but as we look at these things, I mean, that's just impressively packed. In fact, my other strap punches that are similar to these came in a box similar to this. I should get them and show you, but I won't bother taking the time. That's how I keep them. I store them in this box. So, first thing I want to show you, because I'm going to use it with the other things, is this hammer. Now, it is a true hammer. It's not a mallet. And when I first got it, I wondered, why did I get this? This is a tool more usually used for stamping steel objects. But then I got looking at it, and there's some real usefulness for leather. Comes with a set of instructions that don't really tell you a lot, other than they don't need to. There's not much to say other than that, than the surfaces. So each of the surfaces can come off, right? And you've got a steel and you've got a brass. The brass, the reason there's a brass is it doesn't cause any kind of sparking. When you hit it against some other metal, there's no spark. Whereas with the steel there is. But the brass is softer, so you might use the steel. Neither one of those edges, those tips, are things that I'm going to use on any of my leatherworking tools. Because I'm taking a tool, mashing it down, and either one of these metal tips is going to end up doing damage to my tool. So let me put this out of the way and show you there's this plastic piece down here. It's solid. It's not flimsy. It just unscrews. And then so do these. Maybe with a little effort. I'll use this one. It's softer. It's easier. So I'm just going to take it off and replace it. And now I've got a true hammer, not a mallet, but a true hammer with an edge that I can use for striking my steel and various qualities of steel tools. I got some pretty cheap junk tools, to be honest with you. There are some that are just not that great. And if I mashed on them with steel or even with brass, I'd probably cauliflower the end of them. And I don't want to do that. So I just put on this plastic tip, and then I'll show you in a little bit how we're going to use that. So that's a nice hammer. I wish you could feel it. It's got a really good heft to it and a good balance. So it's heavier up front. So as you strike, if you're hitting something with a hammer, ask any carpenter. If you're hitting something with a hammer all day long, your wrist starts to get to be really painful. This, having a nice weight like that and knowing how to hit with a hammer, can save you from a lot of pain. So I'm going to set that aside for 1 second, and I'm going to pull out these hollow punches. Everybody who works with leather needs a set of hollow punches. And when you're first working, you go down to Home Depot or somewhere else cheap like that and buy them. You use them for a little while, and then you throw them away. You go buy another pair. Eventually you get wise and go buy a good set that you don't throw away. The edges don't break. They don't chip. They don't cauliflower. These, I'm assuming, are going to turn out to be a really good set. I've never opened this. I haven't looked at them, so let's do that. I'm going to open up this box. Oh, nice. It comes in a nice carrying case. Toss this box. That carrying case is really nice. The idea of it. It's a nicely done one, it looks like, too. Because so often when I have to go out on site to do some work, I put these in a bag, and I've made carriers for them and different things like that. But this is nice to have just a nice, looks like canvas bag. And it's and what's this? Oh, a little place to stamp on. So right away, I'm pretty impressed with this. Nice case, nicely marked. And look at this, all the way from a 1 mil up to a 12 mil. It's sometimes hard to get these larger sizes. So that's really nice. Okay, and it has a block to stamp on. I was just going to use this mat, but I'll use that block that it came with. Grab a piece of leather here. There we go. Now let's just try a couple of these sizes. Let's start off with the tiny one. It's a 1 mil. It's nice because it has, I'll show you, it has this, I just think of it as an ejection hole, but as the leather gets built up in here, it's got to go somewhere, and it's going to come right out of there. One of the biggest problems with these, with hollow punches like this, is if this isn't designed right, it gets blocked up in there and gets stuck, and then you throw them away and go get a better set. Let's see how this goes. So I'm just going to use this hammer, and again, I'll use the plastic end. It's much better for your tools. And let's see how this goes. When you're hammering, by the way, just a piece of advice, try to keep, when you're first starting off, so that if you set it against the impact point where you're going to actually strike, I'll see if that'll balance there. You want to keep your arm as a straight line so that when you're holding the hammer, your arm isn't up like this or down like this, because that's going to, first of all, tilt your hammer head and the strike zone, and you'll get weird imprints. Also, you'll wear out quickly. Doing this means you're using your wrist entirely. Having your arm up real high means the same thing, even worse. But if you keep your arm straight, you can use your whole arm to hit, and it will save you a lot of pain in the long run if you do it that way. So I just tapped that twice. I didn't hit it hard at all. I don't think I needed to hit twice. Yeah, that went straight through. Good stuff. Let's try that again with just one punch, with one hit. Yeah, and I barely tapped it, and you can see it came right through. That's really nice. Those are good and sharp. One thing that I've learned to do with hollow punches in general is, you notice when I punch this through, it's stuck in the leather, and in order to get it out, I kind of have to wiggle it around a little bit, which will distort the punch size. So one of the things that I do quite often, if I can find my wax. And of course, now I can't. Should have gotten this earlier. Well, let me get a new block of wax. I keep beeswax all the time. One of the things that you'll want to do as a leather worker, get to know someone who keeps bees. And beeswax can be rather expensive to buy. My friends just give me these boxes. I've got more beeswax blocks than I know what to do with. Well, not really. I use them quite a bit. But what I was going to show you is with a punch like this, in order to prevent having to wiggle to get it out, if you just put it in the beeswax, twist it around it like that, you've got a little coating of wax on there. So now when I punch through, it comes out much easier. I didn't have to wiggle it around and twist it and distort the hole. So my hole is more perfectly shaped. That is a nice punch. You didn't see it. It happened while I was moving around. But out of this thing, I just call it the ejector hole. I don't know what it's really called. It came out real nicely. And that's a good sign that it's a good punch. When that just, the leather, the hole that's actually been punched out just flows out nicely. In fact, if you do a lot of this punching, one of the things you're going to find is that your workbench ends up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these little punch holes. They're like donut holes, I guess, in a way. Just tons of them. And so some guys, I don't bother doing this, but some guys will just build a little collector so that when it falls out into, if you can picture a little tiny little Dixie cup running around the outside there, doesn't affect the way they punch, but it collects those donut holes, those punch holes. And so you can do that if you want. Let's go to a medium size. Let's go to a 6. And this, by the way, isn't even all that medium. That's a fairly large. When you pick these up, these are not lightweight junk, you can tell. So I'm going to once again just run that through the beeswax just to get you don't need to go far in, just really up to the cutting surface. You can see the bevel there. I don't know if you can see that or not. You can see there's a bevel, a cutting surface. I go in just beyond that, just so that's just barely in there. You can see leaves a little ring in the wax, but it's not doing much to it. Let's see how that punch goes. Right. I expect I'll have to do a little more stronger force because it's a wider cut. Although I may be wrong. That went right through nicely. In fact, it went through further than I had waxed it. So I had to twist it a little bit. But that's a clean hole. That's really nice. Let me do that a little bit deeper on the wax now. So I get a little bit more. And it's perfectly fine if you get some wax on, build up around the edge. It's just going to come out with the hole. Yeah, one strike, and you can see that I'm cutting through, and then pulling that out is nice and clean. That, friends, is a nice hole punch. Let's go really ridiculous. Let's go all the way to the number 12. That's a bruiser. I don't know that I need a hole that large very often, but when I do, I've got it here and I don't need to worry about it. Again, I'm going to wax this up. I'm probably going to wax this a little deeper than I normally do, just because of the cutting edge is so strong, so sharp that it's going through further. Okay. Now let's cut a great big old hole out of here. Yeah, one stroke. No, I didn't quite get all the way through with one stroke, but I might not have hit it evenly. Let's pull this out and see what happens. Good clean hole. I think that I didn't strike it very well, so let's try it again to be fair to the tool, to make sure it's whether it's my fault or the tool's. But again, this is a 12. That's a massive hole. Yeah, no, it's going to need 2 strikes. That doesn't really surprise me. But that comes clean all the way through. And you'll want to sometimes, you can just let it go and it will fall, but I'm going to eject it myself just to show you how that works. What happens is you get more and more and more and more of these layers. They build up in there, of course. And then eventually they just fall out. Kind of like that. And then you get this sitting on your workbench, which of course you toss. There's not a thing you can do with that. Well, folks, that is a really nice hole punch set. Those are keepers. And they're marked, by the way, on the individual hole punch. Because if you're like me, you get 40, 50 tools sitting out on your workbench, and now it's like, wait, which one did it go in? So easy to notice. That is good and hefty. It's solid. And that, my friends, will really do you well for a hole punch set. Don't bother wasting your time buying the cheap ones like so many of us do. Go down to Home Depot and buy it, and then a couple of weeks later we buy another one. Just save your money. It's a lot cheaper if you buy a nice tool set. My dad taught me that along when I was just a wee kid. Buy your tools once, and you'll save a lot of money. Buy them 3 or 4 times, and even if they seem cheap, they aren't. Folks, that is a nice set of hole punches. That is, I wish you could feel the heft of that. It's good and strong and hefty. It's a nice, and they're sharp. That's the best thing. Hole punches can be a little tricky to sharpen. They're not that hard, but they're harder than a traditional knife or other blade. And so you want to buy something that's good and sharp from the beginning. This is good. All right, let me get this stuff out of the way, because I want to show you these strap-in punches. Now, folks, I'll have to confess, most of the tools that I have been doing in the review, I've been doing basically an unboxing where I'm showing you the tool the first time I see it. The strap-in punches, that's not true. I cheated because I wanted to cut a couple of strips that I could use in advance. So I've already opened these up and looked at them, but I haven't honed them or polished them or sharpened them or anything like that. And I just got to tell you how nice this set is. That is a beautiful box. That is very protective. The other strap punches that I bought from Alden, I think I mentioned this earlier, I keep them in this box. It's a little bit difficult to get them out, but that's kind of the point. So there is a set of 3. Pull these out here. For various widths. They're marked S for small, M for medium, and L for large. Doesn't give you the millimeter size though. So I'm going to grab my calipers, and if you're going to be serious about leather work, you're going to want a pair of calipers pretty soon. I just bought the cheapest one I could find. I think I got this at Harbor Freight. Works great. The only complaint I have is when I leave it on and forget about it and have to go buy a new battery, but that's my problem, not the tools. Nice set of calipers, and you don't need anything fancy. So let's measure these. I don't know if you can see the measurements very well, but this is the large size, the one that's marked large. And it is coming in at 38.5. This is mil, okay? If I change that to inches, if I can get that done, There we go. It's about 1.5 inches. Okay. The medium is going to come in at 1.3 inches, so 1.25 inches basically, or 33.5 mil. And then finally the small one is going to come in at 28, which should be just a little over 1 inch. Yeah, 1.1 inches. Now, let's talk about that for a second. First of all, you need, at least I found that I need, to make a decision. Am I going to, in my leather work, deal with metric or with inches? If you're in the US, that's a question. If you're in other places out in the world, it probably isn't. I think, unless I'm mistaken, the US is the only country that is holding on to the standard English system, the ASE system. I hate it. I really do. Metric is so much easier to work with. Okay? But so many of the straps that we get, the tools that we get, the buckles we get, those kinds of things are in inches. But then I quite often need a very specific, say a buckle, and I'll order it from one of my suppliers in London. And I have to realize, oh yeah, a 25 millimeter is pretty close to 1 inch. So you have to think that through a little bit. So folks, why is that? Why is it that this is a little over 1.5 inches instead of just being 1 inch? Why is this a little over 1 inch instead of just being 1 inch? Let me grab a strap. These are the straps I cut in advance. And let's take a measurement of them. Let's look at this. So if I look at this, this strap is a little bit, tiny little bit over 1 inch. It's 1 1/8 inches almost. When I cut straps, I tend to cut them a little bit large, because by the time I pull out my beveler, where's a good beveler for this? By the time I pull out my beveler, and I bevel down both sides, I'm probably much closer to 1.5 inches. Yeah. So I'm pretty close to 1.5 inches. But I don't bevel until after I punch my strap. Why? Because I'm going to punch and then I'm going to bevel around that punch, that curved end, that strap end. And so I cut my strap just a little bit, maybe not even a 1/16, but just a tiny little bit over. And therefore, when I go to use my strap end cutter, I punch like this, I want it to fit right. But you notice now that I've beveled down this piece, it's a little too big. It's picky. I get it. It's finicky, but that's why your strap end cutters aren't exactly the size you'd expect them to be. Okay. Now, just a quick lesson here using strap end cutters. It is way easy. I'm going to exaggerate like crazy. It's way easy to get these things off. And look what I end up with, a pretty ugly I don't even want to call it a strap end. It's hardly that. So you need two things. You need to know exactly where the center is, and you need to know that your ends here are lined up vertically and not cattywampus. So here's where something like this mat becomes so valuable. I'm just going to take this strap and line up this edge with this line in the mat. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm just lining it up right here so that the edge runs along that side. So I know that this is in line with the edges or the lines running up and down this way. Okay, so I will adjust to whatever length I need to cut off, and then I can simply put my punch ends, my ends here of my punch, excuse my reach here, but this point right here and this point right here, if I align them with this vertical line, I know that it's not cattywampus. I don't know, on the other hand, that this point is in the center. I don't know how to do that without getting my arm in the way. But I don't know for a fact that that is in the center. However, if I line this up again and I get this set, if it's not in the center, so if I move it so it's not in the center, the edges don't line up again. So by setting your edge points on either side of your leather, and you want to be real careful here because if you get it wrong, it looks really ugly. Once you've got that set, you can feel confident that the middle of the punch is in the middle of the strap. Sorry, that was my fault. I was ignoring my own advice about hammering. But now you can see you get a very, very carefully done rounded edge. And now is when I would come in and do my beveling around this. Okay? And that's the mystery of why these strap end punches are a little bit larger than you really want them. It's because by the time you cut them and then bevel them down, you're going to do well. Here I've got another piece cut just for my small size, just to do it one more time. So again, I'm going to make sure that my strap is lined up on that mat with those lines, meaning I know now that these lines, these vertical lines, are correct, or more importantly, that my leather is set correctly against those lines. Now I'm just going to set it up here, make sure that I've got it on both sides, because here I'm going to do it wrong and do it exaggerated here. If you end up, they're perfectly aligned this way, but notice this one is not on the edge. What you end up with is, not only is it off center, you also have to figure out what to do here. So that's why you want to make sure that when you line this up, and then you go to place your edge, get those points, make sure they're reaching across, all the way across the leather, and that they're lined up with that line in your mat. Then you can feel confident. One other thing that I really like about these strap end punches is what I'm about to do. Notice I'm working in here, getting it all set up right, and holding it with, because I'm right-handed, I'm holding it with my right hand. But what I'll typically do is not hold it that way, because that tends to wiggle a little bit. So I will take my left hand and hold it down here on this base that's laid out here. And they've got a really large, nice base for me to get my big fat hand on and hold it correctly. Get that beveler out of the way. One last piece of advice when you're doing something like this, cutting anything, pull the piece away first. Now I've got a little straggler there. So I'm going to pull out my new knife, if I can find, there it is, that I got from Alden. Nice little pattern, they call it a pattern knife. So I'm going to call that out and trim up that edge. That happens when you're trying to talk to people and explain to them how a punch will wiggle, and then you actually move it, and I end up doing exactly what I said not to do. But that's a nice point. That is a really nice rounded point. And these are great tools. There, I'll make it look like I know what I'm doing with advertising. I'll set it up. There we go. So, really nice tools. Love these strap-in punches. This is my second set of them, and I can't tell you enough good about them. Anyway, folks, I hope that was helpful to you. Alden tools, excellent tools, and sometimes you can find all of these tools on Amazon. Sometimes you can't. Some of the tools are more difficult to find. Amazon is kind of weird in the way they do things that way. So I am toying with the idea of carrying these tools and selling them on my website. Folks, let me know what you think. Is this something you would be interested in? Because I could get these and sell them on my website. I don't have to put up with all of Amazon's rules, so I can sell whatever we want. I don't know. Email me, jeff@jprleatherworks.com. I'll put that in the link right down here somewhere. And that way you can let me know if this is something that would be interesting to you to be able to buy these on my website. Let me know. And if I get enough positive responses, we'll make it happen. Hey, thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you again. I've got a couple of more videos worth of tools to show you. And I'm got to tell you, I'm having a lot of fun. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.